Hi, I'm Scott Behrens, and welcome to our November 9th meeting for Enrollment Management and Student Success. Before we begin, I've got an incredible program to tell you all about, and I want to enlist your help in getting the word out about our Futures for Frontliners program here in the state of Michigan. This is a flyer that Joe and his team put together. Great job, Joe. We have over 2,000 of these, and we need to get these distributed throughout the entire Monroe County area. This program allows our frontline workers to receive a free education here at Monroe County Community College. So it's important that they get this information. It's especially important because they must apply by December 31st in order to receive this benefit. December 31st. And to enroll in the winter semester, to begin at the beginning of the semester, they must enroll earlier because there is already a backlog of applications with the state. So we need to get the word out. So please, everyone, faculty, administration, staff, come get 20 of these flyers and get them out to businesses and ask business owners and managers to put these in a prominent place where their employees can find out about this incredible program. We also have 30 posters that can stick right in the ground. So we want to see this all over Monroe County, just like it's a political campaign. And we know how to run a political campaign around here. So let's get the word out. All right, let's start the program. I'm going to start with a quick video to kind of get us into the mood for what we're trying to do here in enrollment management and student success. Sometimes in education, we feel like we are literally building the plane as we are flying it. And I think we feel like that right now. We're trying to get a foundation of data to inform decision making and to help us to make good decisions that grow the college and improve student success. And so you're going to see the beginnings of that foundation here in today's meeting. I'll go right to our video.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air.
I grew up wanting to be on a wing, wanting to be up this high.
Sometimes the temperature up at altitude will reach 60 below. It's brisk, it's refreshing.
You never know what you're going to come across up here. Canadian geese, mallards,
Owls.
These people back here, that's why I come to work. That's why I build airplanes in the sky.
We're not just building a plane here. We're building a dream.
I love this job.
I do a lot of things up here. When I look over there and I see that little kid, the look in his eyes, that's all the things I need.
Isn't that the truth? We're building the dream, and it is the success of our students that drives us, and that is what we need. And you're going to see that driving us in today's presentation. So let's begin. All right, let's get started. Big week. We've started enrollment. We've got data going into place, and I feel like we're flying the airplane while we are building it in many regards. So we're really putting into place a data structure for enrollment management and student success. One of the things we're really trying to do is professionalize what we do and make life as easy as we can for students. And so I want to thank everyone for getting this out. Putting a common signature and a professional looking signature in our emails is just a fantastic way to help to do this. And Joe and your team, thank you so much for making these links to applications. So anyone who gets an email from us now can get right to our website and apply to the college. And so that's exactly the kind of professionalization and the ease of process that we're looking for. So let's get started in looking at our enrollment. And Ryan, take it away.
All right, thank you. So I thought for this week's slide, and probably one of the focuses for moving forward would be looking at our enrollment. As was mentioned, enrollment started for the winter 2021 semester this past week. So what we did, and thank you, Dr. Behrens, for the help with getting the graph looking a little bit better, as far as what our numbers are looking like, but I thought we would just go ahead and put our head count from our various categories for each day of the week that we had last week, with Monday starting with returning student registration. We actually had open registration beginning on the 5th. So if we're looking at our total head counts, which we have there in the middle of the graph, started out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and ended Friday with 553 as our total head count. Looking at the different areas of the graph kind of show that a majority of our numbers at this point are our continuing students. Once we started getting into Thursday, Friday is when that open registration and new students could start registering. So that's why you'll see the uptick at the bottom there with our FIDIAC students, so those new students coming in. But it's still a good portion of our students are returning, are continuing and returning, a bulk of it. So if we're going to the 553 number in total, 411 of that 553 are continuing students, 65 returning, 58 FIDIACs, and 19 transfer were in that final number for the end of the week. So this just shows that we have a good start towards our goal number. You know, and if you, as we extrapolated it out, even through the weekend, we hit 600 over the weekend as our total number. Obviously, I didn't include that as we kind of cut things off with getting things set for this on Friday, but we are making progress towards that overall number that we're looking at. You know, as we continue to move forward, we can keep doing daily amounts and showing where we're moving towards that enrollment projection and the number that we want to hit. Were there any questions or comments from the group on this particular piece?
Yeah, let's come back to this after we hit Tracy's as well, to talk about how we can integrate some of that and what we're doing to drive this number. So correct me if I'm wrong, this is the number of students enrolled are, we're anticipating that this is about 24% of our total. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's correct.
And so to have 24% enrolled in the first week is a lot. So we really need to go through and that's where I think it's going to be very important to integrate Tracy's part of this discussion. So let's come back to this after we go to Tracy as well, okay?
Absolutely. The only other thing that I wanted to hit on from the last slide, Dr. Behrens, was just about our high school outreach. I just wanted to mention that we've contacted 28 local schools, Monroe County and the general area. We've had 7 virtual visits so far. The most successful was the one that Valerie and I did that was a combo admissions and financial aid presentation. I have a couple more I know on my book. I'm meeting with Jefferson next week. So the team is doing these visits. They haven't been extremely productive. We're still working with the schools. I think there are still some high schools that are still working with just this online format, and you know, a couple of school districts changed this past week to a completely fully virtually online due to some situations with COVID. So we are contacting and reaching out to our high school guidance counseling friends and still making virtual visits with them as well for recruitment really for next fall 2021.
Right, and maybe we can work with Joe's team to make sure we're hitting social media where students are and using targeted social media. Would that make sense, Joe? And I'm betting you already have something like that in place.
Sure, I think so. I mean, Ryan, these are just visits, virtual. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we can even get as granular as a zip code. So let's talk about that.
Okay. All right. Let's move forward.
So this is my section regarding the Futures for Frontliners. There's so much information to track with Futures for Frontliners that I had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Behrens, and what he's asked me to focus on is really for the purpose of charting things out, paying attention to the students who have made it to the eligible portion of the Futures for Frontliners application process. So the chart here reflects the total number of files we have for the students who have been determined to be eligible at the state level for Futures for Frontliners. We're going to be tracking the number of students who are eligible and have enrolled for classes. We'll be breaking those down between new enrollment, because that gives us a picture of what our potential for enrollment growth is, versus continuing enrollment students who are here for fall already and will continue enrolled in winter, receiving frontliners in the winter semester. You can see a large portion of the students who are on the eligible at the state level portion of the Futures for Frontliners have incomplete files. There's 123 of those. Some of those are incomplete because they still have admission steps to complete. Some of them are incomplete because they have financial aid steps to complete. So Ryan is working with his team to contact by phone the students who have admissions steps to do. My team is working on following up with students regarding the financial aid pieces. In addition, all of those students are continuing to receive letters and emails from us. It's important to note, while not on this graph, we do have 923 individuals who are on the Futures for Frontliners list who are still ineligible at the state level because they're missing one or more steps. So my office and Ryan's office, we are continuing to work with that large group of students to hopefully convert them to the eligible level for frontliners. And we'll track this information every week.
Great. For those students that have not completed steps and therefore they're still listed as ineligible because they haven't completed the process, do we have email information for those students at this point?
We do. The state of Michigan just added the email address to the roster last week, and I've already reached out to Joe last week, provided him the text for the emails to send along with the list of students to contact.
Awesome. And we can see whether they've clicked into those, Joe, and which ones have received it and which ones we need to follow up with in other ways.
Yeah, I can see that all on the back end. Once those emails go out, I can see who clicked, who opened, all that stuff.
Fantastic. Great work, folks. All right, let's keep going. Joe, this one is all you.
Okay, so I'll start to get some data on these things later once they start to run. Obviously, there's not much data that comes with a direct mail postcard, but typically we buy a list. We used to get the list from the high schools. They've made it more difficult. We bought a list of 16 to 18-year-olds and sent those households. But this time I decided just to do a blanket EDDM, every door direct mailer. So we did it to every household in Monroe County, which is 65,000, and that dropped on Friday. So that left the the Detroit post office on Friday. So those will start to hit all throughout this week. Sometimes they hit within a day, sometimes they hit within 3 days, sometimes it depends on the carrier route. So we have better luck in Newport area up in the northern part of Monroe County than we do sometimes in the southern part and even in Monroe. But those are all hitting now. So those are out, and that is a version of that graphic you see on the right, because we also modified it for email, and we sent that out to all of student email addresses on October, which hopefully correlates to some of that registration that we've seen in the first week. We actually got that right out before the beginning of the continuing student registration, the closed registration portion. So that's usually a tough one to turn, because sometimes the schedule's not quite up right away. It's like you got to hit that sweet spot of right the day before. So we did that. And then coming up on November 10th and November 17th will be this email blast to 100,000 emails. Because this is less expensive than postage, we start to go outside of our county lines with this and concentrate pretty heavily into downriver and even into our Lenawee County areas. So this goes beyond the borders of Monroe County. So what happens is the email goes out on the 10th, looks very similar to what you see on your screen. The whole image is clickable to our registration page. And then on November 17th, we again to the folks that actually opened the first email. So if they opened it once, they're going to get it again. There's the demos, 18 to 40. And then we geo-target it to specific list of zip codes that I give to my ad agency, and it links right to the registration page, which we updated with the help of admissions, registration, financial aid, to be a lot more friendly to the viewer who might come in, be a continuing student or might be a new student so they know exactly where to go. Futures for Frontliners, I delivered 25 signs and stakes to Scott today. Scott, check that package because I did get a notification when you guys go through it. There may be some other premium items in there that he wants us to kind of test out. I think there might be a floor graphic and maybe something else in there that he tossed in for free. So for what it's worth. And then
that's great. I'll check that.
The other thing for Future for Frontliners, and I do have some data on this that I just emailed. It's not in this. I didn't have it when I wanted to get a full week of reporting. So we did a sponsored Facebook post that went out to all of Monroe County beginning, and it just continuously runs. It's going to run all the way through the whatever it is, the 31st of December, the deadline. So after 1 week, we've reached 3,468 folks. That means that they actually saw it in their newsfeed. 5,463 people had it appear in their newsfeed. And we got 61 link clicks, which means they actually clicked on the call to action. And for this one, we actually do send them to our homepage. Our social media agency is like, you have to continually send folks to your own homepage or it gets a little bit weird. We don't like to link out from sponsored Facebook posts to the Michigan site. But once they click that, they see all the information and what they need to do. So 61 links, link clicks. So if you extrapolate that over the next 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever we have left, 6 or 7, you can see where that is going to end up. And then lastly, social media is out there. You can see those here at the bottom there. We've got Future for Frontliners. We do winter semester registration. There's various orientations of those, numerous ones that we sponsor. Those are all up on Facebook. We do sponsored on Facebook. We do regular posts on Instagram and LinkedIn, which are repeated. And then the website, the registration message is going to be moved up closer to the top of the homepage. We've got Futures for Frontliners up there. I'll drop the millage thank you off of there probably within a day or two, but we owe it to the voters to keep that up for a couple more days probably.
Absolutely. Okay. And,
so
and it looks great, Joe.
Yep.
It looks great. It links perfect.
Thank you.
That's exactly what we're looking for. Good work.
And then
all right.
Oh, I got one more thing. So the high demand Enroll Today campaign kind of bridges the gap between registration as well as promoting these 18 landing pages for our high demand programs deemed high demand by the state of Michigan. And you can see there out of home billboards that are going to run from mid-November through January 10th. They have to run a little bit past the registration date, but that's okay. It's just how they post. I can't do anything about it. I can't make them go tear them down. Pandora Digital Radio starts, and that's going to run from December 7th to January 3rd. It's a display ad as well as our 4 award-winning radio spots. Those will start running soon, and then they link right to the registration page. All of this links, actually this stuff links to the high demand page. And then display digital ads. These are on websites no matter where you are in a geographic range of Monroe County and beyond, and downriver as well, and Lenawee County. You're clicking on say I'm clicking on Fox Sports because that's one of my favorite websites. We're following you around. This is that remarketing, retargeting stuff. Paid and organic social media I mentioned. And then Google search optimization. We have all these keywords that I could share all of them, but it would bore you to tears. But it's all specific to, you click like, you type in University of Toledo, or we're going to have an ad pop up. You type in welding, we're going to have a Google ad, those search engine ads that pop up at the top that are recommended searches. That all is already starting within the next week. So this campaign is ready to roll, and it basically starts today. And that's all I got.
Very good. Tracy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Barron, good morning, asked me to report on retention from fall to winter. So I'll be doing that weekly, and that's what you're seeing before you. So I took the current population of 2312, identified which students are our prospective graduates, which we have 90 right now, and also did a projection on how many would be transferring just based on past transfer rates. So we have 2141 that we could retain as continuing students. So the graph you see, there's a bar graph that has dates, so I'll be filling that in each week. It's identifying enrolled, not enrolled, our prospective grads, and our projected transfers. And then you'll see the pie graph that's basically identifying those same populations just in percentages so that you can see them a little bit easier. So right now, we have 16% of students enrolled that are continuing on from fall to winter. Okay. And then the next slide.
Let's stay here just for a second, if you can.
Sure.
So I will have a letter, and I reported on this last time, going out from my office today. Brian has put together a separate email address for me to contact and communicate regularly with students with mail merge. And so that should be set up by later today, and those letters will be going out to all of our students saying if you have not enrolled and so forth. But let's make sure that after that goes out, that each week we are identifying these folks right here. And Tracy, can you and Ryan work together to make sure a regular email reminder to enroll goes out to these folks each week? And hopefully this number will keep shrinking, but if you can keep updating that Excel sheet that you put together of these students for me and identify which ones are enrolled and which ones are not, hopefully we'll drive that up, but we'll stay right on top of them to make sure they get enrolled.
Sure, we could definitely do that. I did also send a text to all of these students last Thursday, letting them know that registration opened.
Perfect. And maybe that's let's send an email and a text then. Just each week, as long as they're not enrolled, they're going to get our notifications and reminders.
Okay.
And I'll work with the faculty to do the same. I've put together a template letter that they can use, so I will share that with them and their individual lists so that they're reaching out to their students as well. And then let's make sure that you and Ryan are coordinating each week on these numbers because it might make sense if we actually incorporated this chart right here, right over top of his graph on the left in the open area and combine them. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can do that.
Looks good. Fantastic. Okay.
Okay. So this is just, I was asked to track course capacity and utilization. This is just our first week of registration, so there's not anything too alarming to report, but these were the most popular courses last winter. We do have two that are over 50% capacity already, interaction and communication and medical ethics. Looks like statistics is also a high one. So I'll continue to track these. I'll add any courses that aren't on here that are at high capacity so that we can track those as well.
If you would, because this is very important information to get to our academic team so that they know that they need to add classes in order to maintain the enrollment growth that we're getting. So maybe let's keep a list of classes right over here that are higher than expected, or we expect we could fill more seats. So obviously there are some that just come up right away. This communications course, these are some great courses for entering freshmen as well, right? So we've got this. Biology's creeping up there. That we expect that, and we need to make sure we're helping them to maintain that. The anthropology looks pretty high from what I see. And then a few, the math and a few that you've pointed out here. So let's keep a list here so that they get these updates each week as well, with the request that they add seats and do what they need to do to maintain our expected enrollment. This is great.
Okay, very good.
All right, let's see if I can figure out how to exit here. There we are. This is great. We're really using data to inform ourselves and help to inform the entire college. So that's exactly where we want to go. And Kiri, I'd be interested in taking our enrollment stuff. And I know that you had projected enrollments. When does that stuff start becoming somewhat reliable?
You mean when do I supply the enrollment projections to the business office? So I probably usually I do that at a at request basis from Sue Wetzel, but I probably could start doing projections at this time in the semester. What we have now would be I would think reliable for a fall true count. So we could I could do something for her and then share that with you as well, just kind of bring you in on the loop and kind of make it a dual reporting effort.
Okay. Yeah, in particular with the first graph that Ryan had there, I mean, there's some numbers in there that I think we can fairly reliably start predicting where we're going to be for spring and what we need, especially off our continuing students, and then go out from there. Because what I really want to do is make sure that we know exactly how many students in other categories we need to make to meet our goal. And actually, with our enrollment counts in the first week, we're already at 24% of the expected enrollment for the spring, which tells me that there's probably some other factors we really need to be aware of that may be limiting enrollment, such as number of seats available in particular classes and stuff like that. So I want to combine all these things so we're really getting down to here's what we need in order to succeed.
Okay. The model that I use to project for Sue on a fall and winter basis is it's an ARIMA model. It's a time series model. And I use several external to the college factors. So things like unemployment rate, some things like part-time, full-time status, dual enrollment counts, certain things that are specific to the student population. But what I can do is try to break that model out and add in some things regarding, utilization. So the seats available, those kinds of predictors that we haven't typically looked at, but we're always looking to improve that model. I added a few things from the model my predecessor created, and it did become more reliable, but I think Sue will even be very excited to see some predictors added. So I can play around with that and see what scenarios it produces.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I just want to start making this available to everyone so they can even see things that maybe we're not seeing in the data, and where they can say, hey, here's something I can do. And I think that's kind of where we're going with this, which is really good because we're having good conversations over the data. Anything else for the good of the order today?
Scott, did you want me to show this stacked bar chart today to all of you, or do you want me to send that to you offline and you can distribute that among your team?
No, please show it. This is fantastic. Yep.
All right. So sorry, again, I hope you all saw my comment. My computer just restarted at 10 o'clock when I went to log on the meeting. So sorry to arrive a little late. Let's see here. Can you all see the Excel file?
Yes.
Yes. Joe, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something before I start? Oh, you're muted, Joe.
I thought we were open for questions. I did have one question about that chart, which shows the potential transfer and potential graduate, which is great information to know. Mm-hmm. How much do we know, or does it matter? Do we know how many dual enrollments and direct college are in there? And my question in my brain is, does that require maybe a different communications approach with those students, or is that pulled out?
Yes, it probably does require a different communication approach, because I'd imagine we're working with these schools directly. Is that correct, Ryan?
Yes. Yeah, we we're working in directly with each school.
But that would also be a good breakdown for this data as well, if we can add that as a separate line for this particular enrollment data. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I thought that too.
Yeah, I mean, because if some of them are juniors, they're not even really potential enrollees, right? For right now, they are for later, but.
Well, they are in that they count for us, and we're certainly getting paid for them. And they are retention issues as well. So going into their senior year.
Yeah, so that was my thought. Looking at it, I'm like, this is great, and then I just wondered automatically which ones were dual enrollment, and then how we communicate with them. Are you either take more dual enrollment, or then there's the message of stay with us and enroll for at least another semester or two as a student before you go off to your new university. So okay, great.
Yeah, that's exactly where this is going.
I actually have a question just now based on Joe's comment. So Tracy, I'm assuming that you did not filter out, like Joe just asked, on any kind of designation. So you have guest and post-grad students in there as well, probably, which we know, it may not be atypical for them to not be retained from semester to semester. So I think maybe if we deal with those students separately, that gives us a better idea of what that true degree seeking number is that we would expect to come back. Because our guests, they're taking a few classes, we kind of know that behavior. And, we could reach out to them, but again, like Joe said, that takes a kind of a separate communication strategy. So just kind of thinking about how we bucket.
Yeah, I can separate them and report on them separately. That's
great.
And
I'm hoping too, Tracy, how you and I have talked about this a lot. Maybe we can embed in that communication in some way a prompt to remind students to think about the program that they're designated in. So if hey, we see you haven't enrolled, enroll, for the winter semester, and be mindful if you're starting to take classes that are, misaligned with the program that you've declared, consider changing your program, or meet with a counselor, or do that in WebPail, kind of just getting that checks and balances going. I think we'll catch a few students outside of Valerie's students, of course, that we kind of always know where they are, but that other 40-something%, maybe we'll catch them and have them correct that themselves.
Yeah, great idea.
Joe?
Do you, Ryan, do you know, that's 600 students that you said as of today. Do you know how that compares to the first week last winter?
Valerie, I think you went and tried to look at the book that Linda Roberts keeps, and I went over there before the meeting, and she was on a phone call, so I didn't get to go verify or look, but was it not around 800-ish is what you thought you saw after 1 week last year?
Yeah, I pulled the book that Linda Robert keeps, and I looked at the first week enrollment, and it was 827, I think.
Yeah, and let's hold off on that, because we want to make sure, and that is where I want to go with this, so that we have year-over-year data reflected in this graph as well, Ryan. But we've got the graph. Let's make sure we're getting our delineations down, and before we start reporting it, because this is public reporting, we want to make sure that when we get there, that we have our data exactly right. But that's exactly where we're going with this.
And Scott, you want to eventually transition this into one sort of mega dashboard that's separated by tabs, right? And then when we get into Power BI, it'll have its own sheet. So so you are aware, Tracy and Ryan and others, Joe, that are making visualizations, probably Valerie too, I'll just work with all of you as the originating users to transition those visualizations into one location. So we'll make sure the data all speak together. But in particular, that last visualization that Tracy produced, I really like how those look. They look really clean, and they're easy for others on campus that have maybe less experience working with these kind of data. I think they can interpret those very well. So I'm very excited to see all of this data and all of these graphs in this conversation. So
that's getting there. We just want to make sure we do it right, and that, as you said, Carrie, that the when it is up, that it's easily interpretable. Because if people can't interpret it or have more questions than answers, then it can actually be detrimental. So we want to make sure that it's just enhancing everything that we do.
Very good. Okay, sorry to ask some sidebars, but
Nope,
I think it's
please.
a good conversation. So what I've done is I took the kind of the model that Scott used when he interviewed. If you recall, he had a 6-year sort of track of what was going on with some incoming freshmen at a previous institution. And I kind of created that sort of stacked bar chart for some FIDIACs, a cohort of 888 first time in any college students that entered in fall 2013. That was the most recent cohort of 6-year transfer data that I was able to access from the clearinghouse. So basically what this shows us, it's hard to see so large. Maybe let me zoom this out if people don't mind to make it easier to, can I do like a 150? Okay, so the not enrolled are blue, enrolled is orange. So of course, in that first year, academic year, you're going to have all your population there. We had a few students transfer and earn a certificate actually. But here you see the blue goes down for the most part, except sort of in later years as you get into 17, 18, and 19. We're starting to see attrition really take hold because we had fewer, although we had more students cumulatively that earned degrees, which are the green, and transferred to a 2-year, the gray, transferred to a 4-year, the sort of mustard, and the not enrolled, right? Those, earned a certificate, that darker blue. We saw, while we should see this blue go down a little more, we actually have more students at the end that we really don't know, where they are because fewer of them are enrolled. So it's kind of like this funnel effect, which you expect to see, but we want to tighten this up. I think Scott agrees, right? We want to recover more of those blue.
Yeah.
So,
and I think this is already becoming so informative because right here in 2014, you can see that the attrition rate is almost the full attrition rate of what's attained 6 years later.
Yes. Yep. Very telling. So this is a nice high level graphic that I think campus could really, benefit from being reminded of. I will break this out by semester. The clearinghouse data that I accessed as the trial run, really was easier to bucket by academic year, but some future additions to this analysis are the semester breakout. Valerie, I'll also be working with you. I know you love my data requests to look at students in 2019 that are currently or continuously enrolled that are still drawing financial aid in that 6th year, those students that started in fall 13. And also out of this pool of the not enrolleds, how many of those students are ineligible for financial aid? And maybe that is a contributing factor to why we've lost them. So Scott's interested in those questions. As of now, this is where we are. I have some other details if you wanted to see. I'll provide this to Scott. He can distribute this to the team as he sees fit. But looking at summary information for transfer and graduates. So this is the running count and running percent of students throughout the academic year, 4-year, 2-year transfer institutions. If we look at just percent time graduations cumulatively, so we see, very few students you wouldn't suspect to finish in less than 100% time. But when you get into like 2016 would be your 150% time, we would expect that to be higher. The 200% time, I would definitely expect to be higher. But as I always say to people, we're about a 250 to 300% completion institution. So you've cumulatively got the bulk of the completers hanging out here in the, their 4th, 5th, and 6th years.
So let's go back to the graph if we could for a second, Kiri.
Yep.
Because this is just so telling, and I think it demands a much larger conversation. As you all know, one of the things I've been trying to do is get out and literally talk to everyone. And the first thing that I have heard repeatedly from so many conversations with, especially with folks that had the power to influence this graph, is that we have way too many folks telling people to take as few classes as they possibly can when they start college. And the problem with that is this. I understand that our students have a lot to do outside of college. They have jobs, they have families, and so forth. And this is where that question comes from, Valerie, about the financial aid, because from a financial literacy perspective, if students are taking out money for the duration of this time, or even a large portion of the time, first of all, I start worrying about SAP, but also the economic consequence of not finishing a degree in a timely manner becomes very real. Because remember, they're still holding those minimum wage jobs that they had here. They're trying to get out of 6 years later when they're not done and not complete. And so I think we really need to change the narrative on our side from any advice that we're giving of do what you can to get your job, your degree done in a timely manner. Because the truth is it becomes harder and harder 6 years out. And quite frankly, it's hard to see a goal for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old that's 6 years or more out. And so I think we really need to change that narrative to let's help people to take that extra course that they need. Just an extra course a semester gets this done in a much more timely manner. And if you go back to the top there where you have the graduation rates by year, that's I guess it was on the other page where you're showing that the graduation rates by year. Yeah, I mean, this is where we just know that students who can finish in those first couple of years are much more likely to finish. I mean, all the data supports that. The Chronicle has written several, Chronicle of Higher Ed has written several, there have been several articles in there that show exactly that. Students who complete up front are much more likely to complete. It's just very tough to complete a degree on a part-time basis, let alone a part-time basis that's leading to 6+ years. So I think that's something that we need to work with all of our advisors on, is having that kind of a discussion and really foregoing that conversation of take as little as you can. What we need to do is good advising, so we're driving them into classes up front with high pass rates. It's not about taking as little as you can. It's about taking the right courses that you're likely to pass and create a buffer for that SAP rate. But a lot of good discussions to come out of this, and I'm very interested, obviously, in that first semester, first year of data to break that down, because that has large consequences or implications for a first year experience as well as advising.
Some other things to think about in this gold, so gold and gray. So cumulatively, this is, the group of students that transferred just in the, very next academic year from when they started as a FIDIAC. So Scott and I have talked a lot about educational goal. Ryan, I know we're launching that survey where we ask that question, but we're only going to hit probably mostly perspectives or early on students, but we have our currently enrolled students at any given time, we code and colleague based on, I think, the program that they designate, what their goal is. But, if a student wants to transfer, you can get even more specific. Do you want to take a couple classes then transfer, or are you, planning to get the degree and transfer, or are you on a track where you're going to transfer before you earn your degree, but you'll do reverse transfer because you see the value in, the associate degree, and your institution going to transfer to has explained that. So we don't really know if these are successes. I think we always tend to jump and say, oh, they transferred, that's a completion goal. If they wanted to stay, they're part of our attrition rate. And I want to know, personally, what we could have done in that space. Especially when you look at the transfer specifics. So looking at cumulative credits, so if we look at in 2013, right, in the later part of that academic year, students are transferring out with very few credits. I don't really think that's their goal, right, to transfer that quickly. Maybe I'm wrong, but we need to ask those questions. And then Scott and I did some deep dive into some of these, some of this data. So Scott, where's that one? We looked at a student that
Yeah, it was
70,
on another tab. Yeah.
so 70 credits in a pre-English. So interesting. They designated as a pre-English student, never earned a degree from us, transferred, and then their receiving institution, they went to Lawrence Tech, and they're in computer science now. So there's a couple things, right? Students, I guess, change over time, but we maybe need to understand that a little more. Valerie, do you have something to add?
Yep, and this is something that you and I have talked about before, Carrie, and that is we currently don't have any type of process in place that requires students to regularly check in with us to confirm that the degree that they have reported that they are working toward, that they haven't changed their mind and they're working towards something else. We tend to find a subset of the students when we notify them that the classes that they're taking are out of sync with their degree program and it's impacting their financial aid. But if it's not a financial aid student, we're probably not capturing that.
Yes, and that's kind of the notion I had earlier, sending out, just a little blurb. Hey, we want you to register. We see you should be coming back. Remember, if you're taking classes outside of your program, or if you're a liberal arts student and you actually are taking some occupational classes, because I think students don't understand that either. So if they say they're just liberal arts, right, especially if they're not financial aid drawing students, and then they start taking courses, they might not understand that that's misalignment. But they definitely would understand if they designated in welding and now I switched to mechanical engineering, right? They understand because those are content different, but they might think, oh, I can be a liberal arts student and just take specialty courses, and then I'll true that up at the end. They'll give me my degree in whatever I, took my courses in. But we're missing them because now they're, I believe, truly, we're definitely a heavier transfer student enrolled institution than AC. I mean, that's how we even are classified by Carnegie. But I think we're missing, those percentages are just not accurate. We're missing a lot of students that are taking occupational courses that are just saying I'm a liberal arts, I'm an associate of whatever. So just, and we can, when Scott distributes this, you can filter through and just click on any of these if you're interested in these higher credit, cumulative credit numbers, and you can look at what's going on with those students. And then if you look at, this is kind of interesting, just quickly, something that I'm just labeling attrition. So this tells us, excluding the transfer and graduate or graduated students, the count of students that had this academic year as the last attended. So, in 2016, 15, 14, right, 13, we're losing the bulk of our students in those time frames. And I think, as Scott mentioned, we're losing the bulk of them earlier than later. So this is just kind of interesting. If they're not minded to get out in the first couple of years, they're going to have a hard time coming back and finishing later on. So just some interest, and you can look at the average cumulative credits that students had at their last point of semester. So this is kind of interesting. In 2017, we had 6% of students that was their last semester, but that at that time point, cumulatively, they had completed 34 credits before we just lost them. So and you can filter and drill down on this in different ways. You can contact me to help do that. But, there's definitely more information to look at. I think this is a good starting point. And if I can provide the semester breakout, and then we can sort of overlay the work that you all have done on your visualizations, we can get a really robust dashboard together. And then I think once we have enough data in Excel and visualizations developed, we can make the case to Brian Lay to really start some training on Power BI, and maybe his team can find some time to get better versed in that. Because really the issue is we have that dashboarding tool in our Microsoft suite. I just don't know that IS is equipped to deal with maintenance of that at this time. They don't have enough even proficient users on that tool. If something were to break or there was some kind of issue, it would kind of be like you're on your own in some sense. I mean, they could help in some ways, but I think it's just going to be a learning curve for everyone. But we have the technology. So
Right.
Sorry to take a bunch of time. I just kind of wanted to share what, I'm able to contribute. And if anyone needs any assistance with visualizations, or if you have some questions about what you want to see out of the data, but maybe you're not sure where to find that, please contact me.
Carrie, can you just go back to that last page again where you had the average number of credits by year? Yeah, right there. Ryan, if you would you share this with your advisors and really encourage them? I mean, 2.77, this is the average, right? Am I reading this right?
You are.
2.77 after the first year is the average number of credits. We've got to work with our advisors to really push for towards full-time loads and really advise into those classes the first semester. The first semester, our students should be taking gen eds for the most part. I understand sometimes there's a need to take something else because there's a long sequence, but for the most part, our students are going to be most successful if we can get them into a regular load of classes that is a high success rate group of classes and supportive of what they're going to need, supportive of the skills that they're
Scott,
going
you know
to need.
what? I'm thinking, I'm not to cut you off. This is an underreported metric because I think we have false zeros, because this is going to be a point in time, right? So if these are FIDIACs, in fall of 13, they're not going to have accumulated any credits. So that's an error, a semi-error on my part. So so everything else is going to be good. So keep in mind, this is not going to, so whatever semester the student is currently enrolled in on the enrollment report where they haven't completed credits yet, those credits that they've completed aren't included in that average. Does that make sense? Because those won't be captured
It
till the
does.
subsequent
It's
semester.
still incredibly low.
It is, even if we take out those artificial zeros. Just to give you, Ryan, a better number, I can work on figuring out how to calculate that. Tracy and Valerie both rose a hand.
Carrie, it's Valerie. Question for you is, are your figures, when you're looking at the credits completed, we have an awful lot of students who are in the Math 090 or Math 092, and of course that's a 0 credit hour course. Is that being factored into completed credits in your analysis? Because I know reports that I have to run for financial aid and scholarships, I have a lot of work to do to clean those reports up because of how the data dumps from Informer.
So you're saying the developmental coursework that is not counting toward the transcript, am I excluding those courses from the cumulative total?
Or somehow accounting for them, because if a student takes Math 092 and they pass it with that H grade, they've completed 4 credits, but toward the academic transcript, because it's not a class that counts toward completing their degree, it's not factored into that overall 60 credit hours that they get. So they've done just fine in the course, but the credit hours don't show as completing 4 credit hours.
Okay, I haven't accounted for that. And what's interesting is I wonder if, because it's kind of misleading, right? So in Colleague, that table that houses cumulative credits completed or billing credits, it doesn't exclude that either, to my knowledge. So maybe there's a way that we can get data processing to put an exclusion on that. Tracy, have you when you report out with that student profile statistics, that doesn't exclude, right? Developmental?
It does not. It does not exclude.
Okay. So yeah, that's interesting, Valerie. I hadn't really thought of that. So that's another point in data, looking at data governance. Which, by the way, just to let the cat out of the bag really quickly for all of you, based on Grace's directive, I am going to put through the councils in December an action item to create a task force for data governance so that we can catch issues like this. a group that will meet regularly. And then if we have successes, we'll move to a standing committee is the hope. HLC has been asking us to do that for a while. So I'll put out an all call. There'll be some that need to be on it, but if anyone's interested, Valerie, I know you don't have a lot of time, but you always catch things like this in the data. So if you're interested, we'll be meeting on a very brief basis through the academic year, but doing these deep dives and making recommendations for how to clean data up. So Tracy, I guess you might be interested in a modified query too, based on developmental exclusion. I can talk to Jim about that.
Well, I don't know that we necessarily want to exclude it. We definitely want to look at that even separately, because that has other implications.
Well, so not exclusion, like a filter, like a hard filter, so that I can query and say I want everything that's transcript credit and everything that's all credit kind of thing.
Yeah, and I hate to do this to you, but it would be very interesting to watch those students who are in developmental and look at a separate 6-year for them, just to see what their attrition and pass rates and so forth look like, and where we're losing them. And I bet again it's back in that first semester.
Okay, and I don't know if you have been able to access or review. Did your former colleges, Scott, submit to Voluntary Framework of Accountability, the VFA, to your knowledge?
I do not know.
Okay, so we submit those data. That's through the I can't remember the acronym, but the Community College Association that Kojo is a president of. We submit those data on a yearly basis, and it tracks developmental and 6-year progress measures and all of that. So I can give you some of those reports, and we benchmark against like institutions. So the benchmarking is powerful. Tracy, do you want to add? No. Okay, she maybe had her hand up from earlier. Okay, so I won't go on and on, but Scott, I'll give this to you, and then you let me know what, besides what I've committed to add, if anyone finds things to add, we can just continue to improve this. Tracy, new hand.
Sorry. I noticed that dual enrollment are included in this, and if we're using this data to tell counselors or encourage counselors to have students enroll full-time, it's kind of a little bit misleading, since most of those students are part-time, and they're a big part of our population. So
yes,
good point.
You are correct, Tracy.
And I do want to clarify, while I'd love more full-time, it's not necessarily full-time, but we want to make sure that that they know what their track takes them out to, so that we're encouraging doing more and getting done sooner. It's not necessarily a full-time load, but we want to be careful that we have them here enough that we're keeping them on track and engaged.
So Tracy, when I take out post-grad, guest enrollment, and dual enrollment, these are the updated figures, with the caveat that there's false zeros in here. So
yeah, it's the false zeros we have to get rid of, because that didn't change much.
Well, the false zeros are, I can work on just that wouldn't matter for subsequent years. It's just that first year, because this will be a true cumulative. But I mean, it's not going to be super, it's not going to be greater than 9.47. So, I mean, perhaps it will be if they left us, but so it changed the numbers a little bit, but duals are out of this. So that's an easy filter to filter on. So I can take duals out of just about anything. So Ryan, let me look at that false zero thing, and I'll wait to send the analysis out. Scott, do you approve me to just send it to all your people?
Absolutely.
Myself? Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll do that.
Yep. Well done, everyone. We are out of time once again. These are good discussions, and I think we're really headed in the right direction. Just keep everybody's motivation up. They've got busy weeks ahead. So good job, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.